It was the holiday season on the island of Sodor. Everywhere was covered in a beautiful blanket of soft snow. Sir Topham Hatt was at the fitter's yard. The engines were having their snowplows fitted. He boomed. All the engines wanted to take the presents train. It was the jolliest train of the year, he said. But James wanted to finish first and take the presents train. He huffed. James and Edward's first job was to clear the lines to Knapford. Edward worked as fast as he could, but it wasn't fast enough for James. He snorted. Henry was clearing the line when James steamed quickly past. Cried Henry. But James wasn't listening. He was dreaming about the presents train. He didn't notice that the tracks were icy. James's wheels began to slip and slide. He cried. He was going faster and faster. Called James. He was starting to enjoy himself. He was sliding so fast that he slid all the way into Maithwaite Station. Later, James and Edward had to take some coal cars to the coaling plant. James waited for Edward. He listened to the choir and watched all of the colorful decorations being put up. James wanted to take the presents train more than ever. Finally, Edward puffed in. Called James. Gasped Edward. Snorted James. And they pulled away. James raced to the coaling plant as fast as he could. He puffed. James reached the top of Gordon's Hill. The tracks were icy, and James started to speed up. Edward wasn't happy. James's wheels started to slip and slide. Cried James. James thought it was the best slide ever. At the coaling plant, James and Edward's train had been filled with coal. Edward called to James. Replied James. And James pulled out. They headed for Brendam Docks. James puffed happily. He started to go faster. And faster. And faster. But he didn't know how very icy the tracks were. His wheels started to slip and slide. Cried James, and he applied his brakes as hard as he could. Edward tried to brake as well, but it was too late. Cried James. Wheezed Edward. Sir Topham Hatt arrived on Salty. He was very cross. He boomed. James felt bad. Said Sir Topham Hatt. Called James. Sir Topham Hatt wasn't sure. He said. James felt pleased. He puffed. And so, Edward pulled James back onto the tracks. Later, at Brendam Docks, the two engines collected the presents train and set off carefully for Knapford. Whenever they came to some icy track, Edward called out, and now James slowed down. And when they went down Gordon's Hill, Edward called out, and James applied his brakes. So slowly and safely the two friends puffed into Knapford Station. When the children saw the presents, they cheered and cheered. Called Edward, said James.